My name is Sita, and I'm so happy to see you all tonight. This past year, I was into the 4th year of running a beautiful yoga center on Long Island, and it's called Love Integration Yoga. But due to the pandemic, we made the tough decision to close up our physical location. And now we're taking memberships, as Premji says, on the astral plane. So anyway, we have been collaborating with Premji on workshops and trainings and satsangs at the center, and we were missing working together so much that in September we decided to start a series of meaningful and very relevant to the times talks together with Brett Mahadevi Popper. And it has been really amazing to watch the community expand from our reach in person to seeing students from all over the country. We live in New York, but we have students here tonight from Florida, hi Casey, and the Cayman Islands, I've heard. So if you like to tell us about the exotic places that you're tuning in from, you can use the chat box. We would love to see where you're coming to us live from this evening. And also you can use the chat box if you have any questions that you would like to add or something that you would like to say. And we will try to leave time for everybody to share and just share at the end of this evening's talk. Jupiter, Florida, Oregon, the Hudson Valley, Maryland. Very nice. Thank you. So there are a lot of people in this world who are able to express themselves very well and are able to stir up feelings of love in the rest of us through song, through the written and spoken word, and through leading ceremonies and experiences like yoga classes. And one of the people who does this better than anyone that I've ever met is Prem Sadashivananda. His name is Prem. I do believe that means divine love. And he's even written a book on love. I know most of you have this book. It's called Open Your Heart to Love. And if you don't have it on your coffee table or on your altar, I highly recommend getting it. It's just, you can open it for a daily dose of inspiration. So when I was running my yoga center and teaching classes almost every day, I would end a lot of the classes sharing a particular passage from Premji's book. And it was on mastering the informal language of love through the kind looks, through the smiles, through gestures. And he had written that the most beautiful people in the world are the babies that are smiling, women and mothers, the elderly who are smiling, and he writes, and of course the sages. And I loved reading this passage to remind the students that their smile was a wonderful service to this world. And it really helps. So tonight, I am so happy to see all of your smiling faces. Welcome. And this subject is so sophisticated that it's almost incomprehensible. And yet it is as simplistic as breathing air if you are open to it. So it's just so amazing to witness instruments of love change energy in the room. So I'll just hand it over to Premji to get us started on this wonderful subject of mastering the language of love.
Thank you, Sita. I'm just going to start with a little bit of a prayer. Om Ganganapataye Namaha, Gangurabhyo Namaha, Om Aim Saraswatyaya Namaha, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Namah Shivaya. Good evening, everyone. It is a pure joy to be in all of your presence, even on the Zoom. And I want to first say to Sita ji, thank you so much for this lovely introduction and for also wanting to do this talk with me, because I have also myself a great appreciation for everything you do. Sita, as you know, she's an angel. That's like a simple definition of her, but she's a brilliant teacher and a great practitioner of love, I would say. In simple words, if you see her, if you spend some time with her, if you eat a chocolate cake with her, or if you do a yoga class with her, you will feel an enormous love coming out of her. And I do hope that that center at some point reopens, and and perhaps that more talks should come on love. This is a large subject. For one reason, I would say is that love is a matter of mastery. It is more than just psychology. It's really understanding all kinds of different aspects of oneself and how to work with others. And because of that, it could become like maybe a three-part webinar, where in one we could discuss just the general aspects of what love is, or what love as an ideal is, and then other things also, such as the challenges that come in expressing, cultivating, nourishing love. Then we could have one only on self-love. This could probably fill up the whole Zoom room, since most people have a problem with this the most. We know that the way we relate to ourselves, I would especially say deeply, is the way that we relate to everything else. And there are lots of little programs that run within us that I would say they're not often in the best working mode for us. So to grow in love really presumes or presupposes growing in love first for oneself. And if we can do that, that is the first step we need to do. It's really a cultivation from inside out. It's an exercise from inside out in the same way as the yoga is. However, before we can expect to master self love on all levels, we should talk about love for what it is. There was some gentleman who happened to be a doctor, and somebody asked him once, what do you think is the best medicine for anyone? And he said, of course, the best medicine for all humans is love. Then the gentleman, somebody who was asking him, said, well, what if it doesn't work? And then he said, well, just simply increase the dose. So I think this is the way to always proceed. I have two of my favorite thoughts. This one is what I've just shared with you. Um, if you're in doubt what you need to do in life, and you feel like, the love does not, it doesn't work for some reason, then all you have to do is to increase its dose. Another my favorite thought that came to me a long time ago is that if you have any doubt in life how to proceed further, how to solve a relationship, how to even treat yourself, how to deal with yourself, ask yourself, what would love do? That will take the love into a more interpersonal level, but it will have a deep, of course, answer for you. So that's the first thing to remember. Let us increase the dose, right? Um, Now, this is a special kind of a vaccination where you actually add some of the antibodies of hate and dislike and everything. You put some love in it, and then slowly, slowly increase the dose. And this is what we need to do. First of all, let us think about love as being a need. And I would say now widely it's a need for the whole of humanity in order to solve any problem. You know, think of humanity today, right? It's kind of a big mess. Everything is out of order. And, if we obviously concentrate specifically on that negative side, we would have no strength to rise up to the occasion. So what we need to do is what the people did today in Long Beach. I understand they were clearing the garbage from the beach itself, and I read someplace it was about 400 pounds of garbage they picked up already in a single day. Well, that's the way to do it, and that is love. May not be exactly spoken, May not be expressed through any gestures that are complicated, but it is expressed through love. And this is the way we learn. Love is through action, through some form of an expression like that. So, looking at the world as being so complex, even though I will talk about our personal loves in a minute, but I just want to say that every every problem has typically the only solution, which I would say love, and the love, of course, will spur you into an action that you need to do in order to improve things. I was thinking how many problems there are. I mean, we don't need to even name them, but let's say we have trafficking of children, trafficking of women, just trafficking. I have apparently 1 million people in the world are involved in active trafficking of other people. Now, what do you need there? You need love, and the love will come sometimes, of course, with a greater power and strength and everything. And but it will come with clarity. It will come with clarity, which will lead us to appropriate action where the action is needed, or to anything else, whatever it's needed. So the ongoing application of love, loving kindness, compassion is what's really needed. Love is the cradle of all progress. It is a cradle of obviously communication and understanding, but it is also a cradle of creativity and harmony, and it is simply a source of all blessings in life. So, when we think of love, we need to think of that creative aspect of it. We know when we are in love, we're ready to jump up, a couple of planets here and there, fly through the sky, do amazing things, right? I remember if you're not in love right now, I would say think about the time when you were in love and what that love made you do, like incredible things. So I'm not going to remind you what you were able to do. They could have been the most wonderful things, and we'll try to avoid any tamasic and rajasic references here. But generally speaking, I would think of love as the transformative power. On one hand, it enriches us, but it also transforms our minds, our hearts, and everything. And soon, the person who lives in love really experiences a very different life. However, I think the love, of course, being such an overused word, is often kind of used in a redundant way. Ah, love, don't give me another talk on love. People are like that. A long time ago, the word for love was primarily charity, right? That's a Christian word that was a part of the tradition for a long time, which really involved charity. So, regardless of that, I think this is exactly where people cease to be able to see beyond, uh, the problems they're surrounded by. They don't realize that all solutions lie in a simple word called love. Love has many ramifications: forgiveness, compassion, loving kindness, all kinds of things. But it is really the only solution. How do you improve anything? You see, how much of a problem, Leela Lolling will agree with this, and all of you, how much of a nature have we damaged, right? How have we hurt? Mother Earth is kind of in pain. Why? Because people don't have love. And it's not that they don't have love, but they suppressed it. And they suppressed it for themselves, they suppressed it for everybody else. So this is what you find. And that will lead us into an understanding really what actually love is. So love is a perfect tool to awaken the best in each person. We're not talking just love here towards one person. That I agree with. This is important. We need to also concentrate on that. But at the same time, to awaken the best in humanity, to awaken the best in nature also is to love. And this can be only done through appropriate acts of love. Now, the love does one more interesting thing. When you truly understand it from a spiritual point of view, from a spiritual perspective, you will see that what love does, it unveils for us it kind of shows us the purpose of our existence, our life. So we realize that we're here to really learn to accept, not judge, to love, and that is simply the reason why we were born. So this is my little introduction. I'm going to ask Sitaji to add anything you want, and then I will continue because we kind of pair like this. Okay. Um,
Yes, so I love what you said, Premji, that love is you said it is the cradle of all progress. Mm. It love, I feel it really dominates the subject of our lives. It is in all the best movies and the most famous songs in the world are depictions of some kind of love story in a way. And we all have a fire in our hearts. It's like a little light that emanates from within. And I feel that love is like the oil that keeps our heart lamps burning. It is like the gas to our existence. And we can't really go forward without it. It's really what drives us forward. It's the cradle to that progression, like you spoke about. And it's what gets us there. It's what drives us to be better. And without love, we're like, you know, broken down on the side of the road with a ceased engine. And if we don't know how to ask for love, we're just stuck there with no AAA to call to come get us out and to fix our cars and our vehicles. And it has an endurance to it. So when it stops, it can sometimes feel like catastrophic, like big things happen in life when love stops, maybe a big divorce or a breakup or a split up from even a business partner or something like that. Like the world kind of comes to a halt. Um, so you have to be able to both give it and also receive it. And in the perfect world, um, every being needs to be fed a steady diet of love. And more people these days are dying from loneliness than from any kind of virus. So I loved what you had said, that we just need more injections of love and to up the prescription. I feel like it's something that needs to be tended to constantly in our lives. Um, Many people during the quarantine, including myself, were baking sourdough bread. So you can raise your hand if you got into that, Carlina. Um, and I feel like love is a lot like tending to a sourdough starter. You need to feed it in order to keep it alive so that it can grow. And I feel that love is personal attention at its highest level. To love something is to be really present for that person or that thing. And I feel like our modern world can be a little bit loveless, and I am guilty of that because I can be very easily distracted, and the culprit always tends to be technology. Uh, I live in a house here with 2 puppies and a baby, and they won't let me fake it. They won't let me play with them and send a text message at the same time. They want all of me. And so I feel like to love something is to make someone feel like they're the most important being in the world and really mean it. And to love something is also to let go of your agenda and just be present for what shows up at your door, just begging for some attention. And even, just for the householders, the house plants need our love. And the moment we stop paying attention to our houseplants, they start to wilt and they die, and then we think we need to throw them out. But many times, if you water them and you give them proper sunlight, they perk right back up. Or if they really did die, a lot of times you can also extract the seed and start over again, and have a whole new plant. So we tend to live in a throwaway culture, but I feel that love can always be redeemed. It just takes work, and knowing how to lend support and also request support are keys to opening your heart to more love. I think like Mother Teresa talks a lot about having an attention to detail, like doing small actions with a great amount of love. Um, so paying attention to whatever you're doing, like cooking or folding the laundry or packing lunches. Um, this is all love. I think that she said that love begins at home, the Mother Teresa. It's not what we do, but how much love we put into that action. So, um, that's my feelings. That there's a great purity to love, and we can only really get close to it through faith. And Mother Teresa was one of those people who she gave herself to God, and she would pray for His support. And most of her life, she was at her wit's end, but she never gave up, and she never stopped asking. So you can always ask for more love and more support, and just have faith that it will show up in your life, and be open to that. So those are just some thoughts I have on love, the very broad subject that I feel like human beings will never stop discussing forevermore. So Premji will never be tired of what you have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so we're just getting into the subject. So if you have patience with us, we are going to cover more things. The next thing that I was thinking after having said something about the importance of love and Sita contributing to it is to really first identify what love is. Because when we identify love properly, meaning to define it from a spiritual point of view, then we realized where the most work goes into is actually goes into making us more divine in a sense before we can cultivate such love. Of course, we are work in progress, so we need not worry about this right now. But most humans have different ideas what love is, you know? They think it's a feeling. Some people believe that it's passion that shakes you out. Some people believe that it's even like a delirium, you know. It's like a kind of a, what do you call it? These guys, Romeo and Juliet, where everything is like very intense, passionate, and people in love, they feel sick for weeks and all that, you know. Let it be. I would not say that that's kind of the idea I have about love, but I'm sure we lived through it a little bit. So some people think of it as kind of an incurable disease, but we have to negate all of this. Of course, there's some feeling in it. There may be sometimes passion, but what is the true love? The true love is none of this. The true love is like a state of who you really are. It's a state of being, it's a state of consciousness that we only arrive at after we have undergone a long journey. We walked the path of inner development for a long time. So it is like the path is like the path of seasoning, you know. You start with something, you add a little salt to something, or you add some sugar to it or whatever, then you leave it. You work at it by simply keeping it in some environment. But here, that's really what it is. It's like the true love is simply the recognition that there is only oneness. You love somebody, but in true love, you don't have the words to express. You don't need to use any gestures to express it. You don't need to do anything. It's just there's a sense of being, there's a sense of fullness, and there's neither a thought of me nor you. That is a true love, and you will find that this experience you have it here and there. I will not say when and how, but definitely when you forget yourself, you experience true love. And there are moments, for example, in my little book, Open Your Heart to Love, I have discussed this, that there are sometimes moments when you're walking along the street and somebody falls, right? And you run to help them. Why do you run to help them? Where is that impulse coming from, right? It comes from the experience of myself in that person. That's where it comes from. The reason why you do things for others is because you see or you experience yourself in others. So love as an experience is the experience of oneself in somebody else, but in undivided way, if I may say that. So it's really love is an experience in this sense which transcends the thoughts and even the logic and everything. So all these things in comprehending the language of love, all these things eventually will go. And I always think, the true love comes closer to the idea of pure devotion that we have in Bhakti Yoga, which is kind of a feeling. Let's say, a couple, they're elderly people, they've been in a marriage, in a relationship for 50 or 60 years together, right? And in the beginning of the marriage, everything was passionate, everything was, intense and dynamic, and every little thing had to be gestured, had to be shown. You had to show that you love somebody, you have to speak to them, you have to cook a nice meal for them. And a lot of it was quite external. But then as you grew up and as you got matured and everything, the love was still there. It went deeper inside. So suppose, you forgot the birthday. There was a birthday of your partner and they don't mind. Of course, maybe you will say at the age of 19, nobody minds anything. But I would say it's just the feeling of that devotion, that maturity is pure love. So the external things are not needed. Like in Bhakti Yoga, we speak about, you know, initially, like we want to show our love, right? We want to express it with our hands, we want to touch. We, let's say in bhakti, we love to offer flowers to God, we want to do things like that. But later on, our love is experienced inside, and this is kind of the process that we go to. But if we think about this, that you get this reward of true love only after you walk that path of inner development, inner unfoldment for a while. Then this is the true love is the reward that you get. And when you understand that, then your life becomes one expression of harmony and everything. But in order to walk that path, you need to raise or grow in purity and in harmony every single day. You need to align yourself with the essence of that love, which in our language, in simple language, is simply God. So once you know that God is behind the beautiful eyes that you see and the charming ears and a nose and the little sweet little things that you love about somebody, that's actually God. Just, you can be in a person. He could be in a little puppy, as Sita is cultivating now love towards two pretty overfed puppies. I've seen that, but let it be. That's just what love does. He overfeeds a little bit. And, that's exactly what it is. And there's so many objects, so many people, so many things. A mountain can remind you of love, an ocean can remind you of love. It's not just romantic relationships that we talk about. In fact, sometimes that could be the most complex unless they grow into a true experience of love. So basically, when the person experiences the true love, their focus is not anymore on a single person. They, of course, that there's love towards that person, but it's not exclusive, right? And they don't expect a single person to fulfill all of their wishes and everything like that, which inevitably, brings some suffering. So when people say, "I love this man," or "I love this woman," and they concentrate on something that they find outstanding, like their beauty or charm or maybe the ethics or intellectual capacities, whatever it is. The reality is that you love the essence which is behind those things that are attractive to you. This is what we don't know. And in order to know the true love, you need to know the essence. So you need to basically grow. You have to do your spiritual practices in order to discover the true love. That's kind of the ultimate reward that you get. And normally, when we get into a relationship with something, with somebody, then we expect them to do a lot of work, and we want to do some portion of our work. But when you actually mature into becoming a person that sees love in many places or in all places, then that's a completely different experience. So the more the divine, you know, basically it is the Lord that you love through others. It is yourself, in fact, with a capital S, that you love through others, or you can say it is the divine. So the more the divine expresses itself in these people, in these objects and beings as kindness or wisdom or beauty or intelligence or strength, the more you love them. That is how it is. So that's my story. It's like this. We first have to understand that it is the Lord, the Creator, the consciousness, whatever you may call it, that we love in others. Once we know that, then we also understand it's only that essence in us and in them that can fulfill all our needs. See, without understanding this, the what begins in love can end as a tragedy. We know this, there were so many men and women famous throughout the history who, you know, loved each other very deeply, but had tragic ends, because they didn't understand this, that there's something beyond just the human nature and such. So you will never be able to find the perfect joy, fulfillment in anyone. It doesn't matter how smart, charm, beautiful, all this they are. We know that. In fact, when we find that in other people, we're obviously, for charmed for a while, and then we get bored. And what happens when we get bored, then we feel like our love is fading for them, their love is fading for us, and slowly, slowly we feel like, oh, maybe we should separate, and then maybe we'll find somebody else, and then we find somebody else, and we get chirped up and all full of life, right? And then again we get bored. This is how the list of relationships that we had in our lives is like that. I mean, sometimes, of course, you can say it's karma. You cannot insist on some relationship to last forever. But there is a secret here. One secret is to continuously remember that it is the Lord that you love in others. And keep that as your beacon light to help you also through the difficult times when you find that the other person is not necessarily compatible to you in every possible way and what to do about that. So basically, in order to avoid this continuous falling in love and falling out of love, yeah, falling in sounds like you may break both of your legs, not just one. And falling out of love may think, oh my God, get me out of here. It may sound a little bit more fun. That to avoid that, we need to think of what is it that actually is that is the attractive element in them. So, to understand what love is, you have to think of one thing. It is not a feeling. Okay. Again, I'm driving back to the same point. Why? Because a feeling is inevitable subject to various modifications, variations according to the person it is directed at. So again, think of it as a state of consciousness. And again, educate yourself to perceive love as a state of consciousness. That you will find yourself, a sage finds himself in all forms and he loves all forms because he finds himself in them. So to love means not only to feel something for someone, but to really also, as Sitaji said very beautifully, is to also learn to do things with love, to do everything with love. That is more difficult. You know, even when I was younger, I wouldn't mind falling in love with somebody in an instant, and it will take me a while to recover from it. But to actually learn that love is something, it is how we do things and how we go about in our daily life, that is more of a spiritual kind of view of life, of love. So to learn how to eat, to study, to breathe, to do all these things with love is actually rather difficult, right? Because the different gunas are pulling you. Either you go down or you go like agitated and distracted. So it's difficult to keep the sattva guna. So there's a simple remedy that I often share with people, and this is like learn to do things as if you were doing them for the first time. That is the way how love is discovered anyway. And then it's also how the love is nurtured. If you look at your partner, your husband, your friend, or anybody, you look at them as if you were seeing them today for the very first time. You'll be able to uh, you enjoy that essence that they shared with you, or you exchanged it with the very first time you met. That's a magic of love. That is a tough one because you're going to get tomorrow onto the yoga mat. Even tonight, you may have to say, well, let me serve this meal with love. Whoa, what a strange thing. Okay, you don't need to sing a song or anything. You can just put your heart into it. Okay, and you say, here is your meal, for your partner or whoever, or if it's just cat or dog, you can do also. They will feel it, right? So instead of just uh, plopping a plate on it and saying this is a spoon and your bread is over there, you know how we normally talk to like our buddies. You say, would you mind taking this food that I'm offering to you? Wow, that's like the man may faint. You may have to like sprinkle some cold water to bring him back into life or whatever, but this is the way to do it. Some small little gestures to learn to do it. I mean, no, we're brought up in this culture. We're rough, we're like a rough doggies. When you look at our movies, everything's thrown one way or the other. Bombs are exploding. Sometimes you wonder where are these people getting the inspiration from. They're certainly not attending a language of love webinars. I mean, that's for sure. Everything is flying. Even in my first, I remember my first movie when I saw it, there was this cake. I was brought up in a poor family. And so this in the movies, they were like chasing each other and threw the cake each other. And I said to my mom, "What is going on here? Why are they throwing the cake?" She said, "Oh, don't worry, that's just a movie." So anyway, back to the story. To be able to love everyone, including the people you don't like. Now that's a next level of love. Okay, so we're not going to cover this tonight. But if you want to love anyone, you have to just simply do one small, you have to remind yourself of a small thing. You have to learn to project yourself beyond appearances, okay? And focus on the divine spark that dwells in the people. There's a lot of pride in people. Sometimes the pride of the caste or color or education or this and this. All of that is a barrier to true love. When we actually love somebody, we don't think, okay, here is a puppy who is looking a little overfed and it's kind of, dropping things everywhere. It's like we don't think of that with the form. We see something really rather natural, spontaneous, like completely divine in the little animal, right? So this is how we have to do. And at times, there's a lot of, suit that covers the people's spark and essence, and it may take a long time for us to work on it to be able to accept it. And even if you have to separate from somebody, at some time, okay, no problem. You don't need to force yourself to stay in a single relationship if you find it's a dysfunctional and abusive or whatever. But you always have to think, I will try. If it doesn't work, okay, I go. But you always keep some love for them. How would the love manifest? You will pray for them. You'll pray for them to become better, more sensitive, like that. So even though we may separate in life, it's okay. But we have to do it in a divine way, not in a human way. Sita, do you want to say something? You got some little
Yes, I have a question for you, Premji. When you live alone and you feel lonely, such as in the separation of the time of the pandemic. How can you deepen your love beyond just sitting and meditating? This is an anonymous question.
Very nice question. This pandemic is an opportunity to increase our love on all levels, right? The whole nature is crying and is saying, "Don't you see what you've done to me?" Right? You hurt me in so many ways. Your mother. I'm giving you everything, and you're basically abusing me, hurting me, and everything. So I think of the time, when imagine March, April 2020, will it ever really repeat itself in the same way it did? Like we're all sitting at home, nobody can go out. Even here in Manhattan, we had morgues outside, you know, so many people, we don't know who they are, they're just disappearing from the planet. Later on, we started to hear that some of our people that we know got trouble like that. So in that, there was a certain vulnerability which comes with crisis, because when your world is tipped upside down and around, you have to go deeply inside and contemplate, you know, what is the answer for this thing? And the answers are given to you right away. The answers are not hidden. The truth in life is always simple. The problem is that the desire has made this ability for us to see the truth as simple very difficult. So we're seeing everything but the truth. So because of that, we have to look at also that time as the most conducive time for perhaps another quantum leap of each one of us consciousness. What we need to do is to grow. We need to pull ourselves together. This is how it is. However, each one of us has also experienced the depth of silence, meaning isolation and loneliness. No, I mean there was a tremendous loneliness. If you're, for example, see people regularly, and now you're sitting at home, and all you can do is just go out and maybe buy some food or something, come back quickly because you don't know what's happening. So naturally, even though we as spiritual aspirants, we meditate and spend time doing sadhana, we feel like, okay, now I don't want to just concentrate on myself. I want my heart to open. So I guess you did what you had to do, is you had to open up. Like, for example, you have to make that time to call people, to connect with them. And if that's the only way you can do it, that's the only way you can do it. Of course, the prayer and the communication on a thought level is always phenomenal. It can do miracles, but majority of people, even the very yogis, do not really believe in it, not sufficiently. So the best way to increase your love for people in such things is, of course, to, I think, simply make a connection and show them that you care. I think, you know, the in one aspect of love which is very important and sometimes it's not easy to sustain is to actually be able to recognize the presence of others, you know, to make them feel special, make them feel that they're important in our lives, right? And not shy away from showing it. And if the phone is the only thing can do it, okay. If maybe you can drop off some food to somebody, you can do something for other people. These are the ways to really practically experience love. And then to also think that the Mother Nature in her love also disciplines. So this is an important point, is that Mother Nature hasn't stopped liking us or loving us. She can. We are her children. But the point is that we need to look at to her for clues. And the clue is this: if you do not discipline your life for yourself, that can include anything from sadhana to shopping and misusing nature and all that, then you don't love yourself. You see, and if you don't also, if the other people don't do it, so we have this experience that we've almost at a critical point in our life of society, where because of the lack of love that we all have, you know. For example, you love yourself. Do you? Ask yourself. We're munching up some junk food. Do we love ourselves? Do we take time to rest? Do we take time to do we make important choices? Sometimes you have to cut things off to give yourself what you need. It's not just being always being out there and exposed to everything. The problem with technology is, it connects us, but it never connects us really truly, right? So it's a necessary evil, I would say, because now we are so dependent on it. And the problem with technology, of course, it accelerates things, and acceleration damages more things because the human body evolutionary is not able to keep up with the speed of electrons and stuff like that, exactly how we imagine it. And I feel like that's something that pulls people even further away, even though you kind of feel you're coming together, but at the same time there's a sense of isolation. Only tonight I feel like in this kind of satsangs I feel great connection, because I know, even though I see some pictures here, some little smiles over there, but I do feel it like inside of myself. So it's like it's the subject is such that it connects us. If we were to talk about some, world problems and everything, we will find that that's not going to connect us exactly. So I don't know if I really replied to your question, but I have more things to say, if it's okay, just to kind of get you to the practical understanding of this, what to do, how to practice basically, um, using the right form of gesture and language in life. So some things come to my mind. One is this: whatever you love, don't eat it the whole thing. Okay. Meaning, if you love somebody, don't insist that these people are always around you all day long and answer to every need you want. You know? So sometimes, for example, you feel a person you immediately feel attracted to. I'm sure you felt this. And it's okay. You need not kill that. The thing is that, what it is that there's something in that person that make you feel special yourself, and it kind of throws you into some kind of a state of wonder, and you feel like, oh my god, there's something quite amazing. They inspire you. You think in a wider, more beneficial, more generous way. They broaden like your horizons. They do all kinds of things. This is what happens when we meet somebody like this. It doesn't need to be romantic. I'm only saying this because romantic, of course, feels the best, but not necessarily. You can meet a friend, a new friend like this, or a spiritual friend, or anybody like that. So, what we need to do is, of course, we need to remember it is due to the presence of God that something resonated in me, came alive in me, got animated in me. So, if you want that to last for a longer time, what you need to do is to keep a little bit of a distance. Swami Shivananda says, not distance, not disconnection, but it is, Swami Shivananda says, love long, love less, but love long. Mm. So that means you have to control your consuming passion. Whenever we're with somebody we love or something that we love, we want to consume them to the point that they disappear from this planet, right? That's how it is. Think about the old times when you loved somebody, you want to hold their hand and you want to kiss them, you want to be with them, you call them every 2 minutes, you text them every 15 seconds, and the people like say, oh my God. In the beginning, it's exciting, isn't it? And then they think, let me run away from my dear life right now here. So you don't want that. So there is something that to be practiced. It is a part of the language of love, is that you leave a little bit of a not the whole space in between you should be uh, filled up with things. There's a space between the people which is psychic in nature, which is filled with emanations from two people, right, from their essences, and it is that essence that really brings you into a wonderful state. For example, when you see a friend, right, and you haven't seen that friend for a while, how do you feel? You feel like ooh, it's just something bursting, right? Because you haven't seen them. Now you decide to see your friend all the time, you know. Okay, how are your friend? You don't see them anymore to begin with. You think, oh, that's the same friend from yesterday. There's nothing new in them. So similarly, people do about loves, they do about nature, they do everything. They always relate to things with such an intensity that they don't really, they stop feeling things for them. Have you noticed that at some point in relationships, this is typical when the people are so intensely together, especially physically, sexually, right? That they immediately deplete the essences, and then all of a sudden, boring. That's how it is. So you want to have the space that enables some exchange of your vibrations and things. So suppose, let's say, if I was to give, and Sita and myself, if we were to give a talk every night, you would just say, oh, no more. At least, okay, Sita is all right, but no more of this guy. Like, I can't stand it because it's every day. you know this is the problem even today with technology, has taught you one important thing, unfortunately, and that is that you can relate to everything in a superficial level. If this today's talk doesn't work, you will go and you open up a YouTube, there will be millions of talks on love, right? In a way it's wonderful, but I'm just saying that what happens is you can consume somebody. If you think, oh, I already know what he's going to say, what she's going to say, we read books like this also. We're consumers. We're like stuffing ourselves with things until we cannot feel anything. So you want to have your relationship with people like this, where you energize each other. For example, you write a note to your partner, your friend, to a child, and it's sweet to write a note, right? I'm not talking about texting because that's boring. Okay, that's also okay, but I prefer like a physical note where you put some energy with your pen slowly and you write them, thinking about you. I hope you have a wonderful day, blah, blah, blah. And here and there you leave it in a different place also. Suppose you leave every day a note, they will not notice it. They will say, oh my God, look at this note. After about 3 months, they will see it. So this is what you try to avoid, the repetition, the consuming others. And this is very important. So I still need about 10 minutes. With everybody okay that? A little bit? Sita, what do you think? You want to say something? I should give you more time.
No, I was reading this past weekend for the first time the book The Prophet by Cahill, and it was so beautiful. And he spoke exactly what you're saying, that when you love something, you have to give it lots of space. And he also, just to, if people are alone out there, I also was reading this passage on work. He speaks on all different subjects to his people. It's like speak on work, speak on food and drinking, speak on marriage. So just this one thing really stuck out to me is your work is love made visible. So I thought that was really nice. So if you are alone and you're just diving into your passion project and your work, and you're maybe working from home, just put all of your love into whatever it is you're doing as a service, and that could be very expansive to the heart. Um, I also, um, was well, this is kind of silly to share, but I have these two puppies, so I'm like learning about the wolf pack, and now they're part of my pack, and what's this relationship I have between puppies and humans. um, and I read that the leader of the pack of dogs doesn't lead from the front. It leads from the back, so it's always looking out for the more vulnerable puppies. And so it has like, there's a pack of usually it's like 20 dogs, and 4 of them up front are like really strong and young and agile, and then the dogs in the middle are like the mothers and the babies and the elderly, and then behind them are like younger, more strong, agile pups, And then the leader of the whole family there is in the back making sure that nobody is left behind. So if we can study love from animals and from nature, it's to look out for others and to have someone's back and to put others before yourself. And that's my wisdom from dogs.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. I'll take only a few more minutes. I'm not going to make it too long, just to probably give some conclusion. I love this little story. These two chubby boys are definitely being, um, loved greatly. Okay, so here's a couple things I would say. Whether you have been with somebody for a long time or not, or whatever, that's up to you, of course. But generally, we want to make people feel like connected to, recognize. So recognize the presence of people that you're around or do you meet several times a day. When you go to shop, a teller is there. You may want to ask them how they are, what is their name. They may not be in the mood to say it. It's okay, right? So we have to think of that first. So love in initial stages, middle stages, needs expressions, needs gestures, and needs softness, and it's the way of doing things. So um, the next thing, of course, if you were talking about the relationships, the love in itself should be something that is basically how I say it's based on commitment. When we think about um, the relationships, we don't want them to just last for a second or two, right? Uh, In my country where I come from, relationships such as, for example, between the friends are like for life. You don't break them. And this is very rare that you will break a relation unless something really goes badly. And I'm sure you have some friends in your life that you think this is for life. You don't necessarily have to define it as such, but it's a continuous process of giving. So obviously the commitment in relationships between partners is essential because if you're not able to make that commitment, you're going to definitely end up hurting somebody. And we have done it. I have done it. Maybe some of you have done it, and we know what it feels like. So to make a commitment, of course, depends on many things. I'm not going to say what you should really go into your making that decision because it's up to you. But some principles should be there. And one of the principles is compatibility. Even though all beings should be loved, not all beings are necessarily compatible. You can love a tiger, but you cannot hang out with a tiger in an enclosed den. Right? That would be a very problematic situation because tiger may love you so much that he eventually may eat you. So that you, in order to avoid that, keep some distance. Okay, so this is how the idea is. When we think about compatibility in relationships, we can think about vata kapha pitta. If you think in Ayurvedic way, yin and yang. And just because things are different, that doesn't mean they don't necessarily match. You have to have some wisdom how to judge that. This is why in olden times people used to use horoscopes to decide on some relative compatibility between the two people. Today we just use our own eye, which is okay, but it may not always work. The principle that I think is the most important in love cultivation is to understand that the relationships, so love relationships, practices, the spiritual practices, they have to be seen as sadhanas. So when you look at a person as somebody, normally we think that the love is loving somebody for who they really are, meaning the best. But in relationships, we learn that even the weaknesses of the person are part of who the person is. And by accepting the weaknesses, by accepting that they are working on them or that we can contribute to their working on them, it's a part of what we might call a more mature love. And I'm sure you experience this. If you've been with somebody in a relationship for a long time, you know their weaknesses. I mean, maybe they don't put socks in the proper way, maybe they don't do something. God knows what it is. and you don't make a big deal of it because it is still, you still love them. I mean, you can obviously communicate and try improve different things, so this all stays. See, the problem is that people need training in love and expressions of love because our society, unfortunately, concentrates only on romantic relationships. We lose the picture of what really that love is in a greater sense. For example, uh, you can be not in a relationship and you can be full of love. You see, so you can also be in a relationship and not have love. You can be like, negative and gossipy, which is what you find. I mean, there's all kinds of people. So just because people are in a relationship with another person doesn't make them all glow with light and wisdom and love. That they should remember that. Another thing to think about is to think of the uniqueness or something special that is a part of that person's or that being that is in your life, and to cultivate that perception. When you recognize that these unique qualities come really from God, not from anybody else, you start to see God in them and start to appreciate that more. For me, uh, the only way I experienced love, I'm going to cancel my previous time prior to me becoming a Swami, but when I was in the organization doing karma yoga, the only way we were learning how to cultivate love was through selfless service. And some things I've learned from certain swamis, great people, also in India and here. And the most important lesson I would say is the quality of your expression, and not what you do for others, but how you do it. And my favorite things is to actually show people affectionately that you love them and that you care for them, you cooked for them, and not feel shy about this and not say, oh my God, this is not like, it shouldn't be like this. I should be more detached. I said, no, you should tell them, I have prepared this for you. Please enjoy it. To be able to express this. And when you have a difficult times, to also be spontaneous about it and be really vulnerable and share it. You will touch some love in these people too. Because when we hide everything, there's nothing to love or not love, right? We're just like little robots that go through the day, nothing. I think the vulnerability is a big part of every love. And this is why when you're in love, you become so vulnerable. It's like different things open up in you. And suddenly you think, oh my God, I don't want this, nobody to see this. This is terrible. I better be like, you zip up and that's it. So I believe that this is what we need to do, is to be natural in our love. And in India, of course, in the Vedic teachings, you always think how you would not in your expression of service, you don't want anyone to, and you don't want anyone to feel like they've been in any way insulted or inappropriately things. So there's a lot of finesse. You find this in Indian society when you go there, how they when they serve you and you as a guest or whatever. So this is okay because all you're doing, you're serving the divine principle in them. You're not trying to make somebody spoiled completely. If that starts to happen and he's sitting or she's sitting like this and waiting for the lovely food to be given to them every single day in every way, well, you may have to kind of say, well, why don't we practice a little bit? You do it and I will sit here. So you may have to contemplate something like that. But um, this is what's the important, is to really, like, in your mind, think uh, always how, for example, you can surprise them in some way. I like the surprise element, right? Don't give them divorce papers. I'm saying just give them like some little thing, like like you do. I'm sure you remember this, but I like to work on surprises with people that do not know me, or send them an email, or do something like this that, all of a sudden may perk them. It's not even my intention, but it's just being, you know, like needing to give. I feel like that's kind of what it is. You become like in bliss in giving, like Swami Shivananda was called Swami Givananda, one who was in bliss of giving. So, of course, the relationship between two people has to be cultivated in a way that the love generated in between the two people is able to, and it should be shared with others. so that your love between the two people doesn't get chained around you. Like you see sometimes couples, they're like really interesting. They're always holding the hands. They love each other. They go here, they go there. They're continuously together. You can't even get another. You can't get to speak to them because they're always like duk 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 duk. No, you don't want that. Because after 10 years, he says, you want to watch this movie? Yeah, sure. You want this? No, you want your love to be of some service. You want it to be given to others as much as possible. And of course, we need to cultivate, understand, we have to understand the difference between an attachment and love. When there's too much asking on our side, where it's not giving, there's a whole story about attachment and love. But naturally, at this stage where we are, we're not going to be able to just have pure love. Why? Because it's not the question about how you love that person. It is about whether you can recognize the divine in them. And for the last, not for the least, um, I have to share with you my favorite situation, or how would I say, principle that you can practice. And one is, please try not to be a master of poking somebody for the same thing that they do again and again. I know that there's a special kind of you know weird kind of a pleasure when there's somebody does something and we kind of, oh, you did it again. Sometimes it's sarcastic, right? And at other times we poke the person for not being able to do something, especially if you're working with people, or if you have a partner some weaknesses and is having a hard time to overcome them. That's where you become a partner. In reality, you tune into the mind of the person and see how you can help them. Now, they can mean different things also. I'm not talking about all the practical aspects, but the important thing here is to, um, rather than showing the ill humor or sarcasm or something like this, even if you're working with a colleagues or anybody like this, is to think what would actually initiate a positive change, or what could perhaps help them make that first step. And my favorite thing is like this: you have to have a belief in them. You have to think of something they were able to do it. And then instead of telling them, you cannot do this, whatever, blah, 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 you're like this, you're like that, you can say, you can actually do it. Maybe they have some habit, some bad little thing or something they're doing every day, so they can't get out of it. So maybe they're attached to the phones. That's an most recent negative habit, attached to the screens. Everybody, when the partners now walk into the houses, usually their partners are not in the kitchen making a nice meal or something, or dancing or playing music or doing yoga, but they put things that's trying to answer these hundreds of thousands of emails, right? So this is something that we have to learn. Even if you're on a computer or something, you take your time, step away from it, and then say, "How are you? How was your day?" And never use the word "I" to begin your conversation. Say, "How was your day?" You're very important to me. You tell me about your day. Of course, they're gonna get very excited about that. But anyway, if there is something that is like that, a habit, instead of telling me every time I come home, you're on the computer and you say it in such intensity and in such a like poisonous voice that it makes their heart shrink, even though they loved you 3 months ago or 3 years ago, they can't really feel it anymore because they've been poked all the time. I find this the most amazing thing in relationships, when people start to take pleasure in poking the other, as if the other person is there for granted, right? They're going to stay forever. They may not stay forever. And there's also, what is the point in poking somebody that will not change? If you try to address some weakness continuously in a person in a negative way, they will completely become solid and they will actually maybe even enjoy doing something that annoys you. So what you need to do is just use the different system. You say, okay, I know you can do it. I know you care for me and you should care for yourself. I know you can do it, and like that, awaken some pride in them, awaken some desire in them to change, to make an effort. This is a secret. If you want to work and conquer everybody's heart, never concentrate on their weaknesses. Concentrate on their weaknesses as if they've been addressed and they're working on them. And if you put the right amount of love in it and the right, you have to obviously work on yourself to do that. And don't depend on them. Just say, I know you can do it. Whatever it is that they're struggling to change. Not that you don't like something what they're doing, but if they're actually struggling to change, if they're missing something, they're not smart in something, so all kinds of things. So this is my wish for everybody. And I will finish here with just Om Om Om. And if you want to say something, you're most welcome to. Om 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 Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachite Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Him Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you so much, everyone. So